This video will cover the steps to configure the VLAN feature on the QB/MP8000 series. This video is not intended to address the VLAN protocol/terminology and implementation on the network level. Proper VLAN configuration requires that the user have adequate understanding and experience of both the VLAN protocol and of general networking. Please contact your network administrator before attempting any configuration changes on your network. Note: incorrect VLAN configuration may cause loss of management access to the QB/MP units.
Before we dive into configuring the VLANs, it's extremely important that we cover VLAN management. Now, misconfiguring VLAN management is the easiest way for you to get yourself locked out of your radios. Now, there's two scenarios that we're going to cover, either tagged or untagged, okay? And basically, the only thing that the radio is doing is following the configuration of your VLAN switch, okay? And I'm going to cover that once again. Either it's going to be tagged or untagged, and we're going to go ahead and cover that. Now, the first one we are going to go ahead and cover is untagged, okay? In the 8000 radios and 100 radios, once you enable VLAN, the VLAN management ID is set to -1, which means that it is untagged, meaning that all VLAN tags are going to be dropped. VLANs are not recognized by the management frame. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example of untagged. So what we have here is a VLAN switch, a 8000 radio, and a PC. Doesn't matter what it is. Okay, so what we are covering here is untagged. So what untagged indicates is that the radio itself, the Proxim radio, is not expecting a VLAN ID tag. Okay, so the PC itself that's connected to the VLAN switch is going to have to be connected to a VLAN unaware port, the native VLAN. The native VLAN is the portion of the switch that is not configured for any VLANs. Typically, it's going to be a VLAN 1. It's where all the rest of the VLANs reside that are not actually part of a VLAN. So you could have VLAN 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are all going to be your traffic VLANs. The native VLAN, typically VLAN 1, is going to be the rest of the VLANs that act like a normal switch. Now, because the untagged management VLAN ID is going to drop anything that actually has a VLAN ID to it, you're going to have to connect the port of the PC to a native VLAN port, or a port that is not actually being used actively as a VLAN. If you are going to connect the PC to a port that is actually set for a VLAN, let's just say, argument's sake, you have management is untagged and data is 30, you connect it to a port on the switch that is configured for VLAN 30, all traffic is going to drop. The management traffic is going to drop because the radio is not aware of any VLAN 30 for management. Okay, so once again, in that case, you're going to have to connect the PC to the native VLAN or to a port that's not being used for any VLAN configuration at all. All right, up next, we're going to cover when the management VLAN ID is actually tagged. Okay, so as you can see here, we have a VLAN tag of 10. Okay, now in this scenario, for argument's sake, traffic is going to be VLAN 30 and management VLAN ID is going to be 10. Okay, so now you're going to have to configure the radio. So it could be managed via VLAN 10, and then what to do on the switch side as well. So on the radio, just go ahead and we're going to click on Advanced VLAN Ethernet. Of course, VLAN status is enabled. We're going to go ahead and type in VLAN management of 10, click OK. Okay, then we're going to go ahead and click on Ethernet. Now, what we're doing here, okay, and that kind of even depends on if we're in transparent or in trunk mode, okay? And we're going to go ahead and cover these two later on. we're going to go ahead and make sure that we add both VLAN 30 for our traffic and then VLAN 10 for our management. Okay, now this is just telling the radio to expect every VLAN that it's going to be aware of that's going to be passing through it. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at management VLAN that is tagged. Okay, so now we have VLAN management enabled. So the way that the switch is going to be configured is basically one of two ways, and it's really going to depend on if your NIC on your PC supports VLANs or doesn't support VLANs. Okay, and that really is going to depend on how you're going to configure that particular switch port. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the switch port that the radio is connected to. Okay, and once again we have VLAN 30 and VLAN 10. VLAN 30 is traffic, VLAN 10 is management. Okay, so the switch port over here is going to be configured for both VLAN 30 and 10. Okay, now we're going to go over to the switch port where our PC is connected to. Okay, now once again depends on if your PC's VLAN aware of or unaware. If it is aware, then you could go ahead and set it to trunk VLAN 10 and then go ahead and set your NIC to VLAN 10. If it is unaware, okay, which means that the switch port does not understand VLANs, you're going to set it either to untagged or access, okay, but you're also going to make it part of VLAN 10, which means that all traffic going from the switch to port are still going to be tagged, but the second that they go out to the radio, out to the server, they're going to be stripped. It's going to be untagged. Now, as the traffic moves back into the switch port, the radio is going to retag it with VLAN 10 or whatever management you have. So you have to remember that both of these are going to have to be set up for VLAN 10 one way or another. Either one is going to be trunked when it understands VLANs or untagged or access depending on the switch if it does not understand VLANs. Transparent mode is the equivalent to no VLAN support and is the default mode for the QuickBridge and MP radios. It is used to connect VLAN aware and unaware networks. An interface in transparent mode forwards both tagged and untagged frames. So if we look at a diagram here, we have a Tsunami multipoint. We have a base station and satellite. They are in transparent mode. Down here we have a VLAN aware switch and a VLAN aware switch, and just two separate networks on either end. What happens is that the VLAN information is passed through the base station. The base station does not do anything with it. It does not look at it. It doesn't modify it. It doesn't tag it. It doesn't do anything, just passes along to the satellite, just as a plain old bridge, invisible wire. This information is just passed along to the other VLAN switch, and then, of course, the VLAN switch distributes it according to its port information. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at transparent mode first. To set it up, go ahead and click on Advanced VLAN and then Ethernet. Okay, click on VLANs. This is where you'll be able to enable, disable, and then click on Ethernet. And then this is going to give us our mode. This is a base station, so we only have transparent and trunk. This is a subscriber, and we have transparent, access, and trunk. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over transparent. Just as we talked about, the information is going to go from the VLAN switch past the base station to the satellite to the VLAN switch. You could have 200 VLANs. The radio not going to care. It doesn't care. It's just going to pass it along happily. Okay. By default, this is the setting. Okay, so you really don't need to do a whole lot. The only thing you may want to, you're going to have to end up doing is on VLAN and go ahead and enable VLAN status so the radio at least knows that it's doing VLANs. But the second you do that, you're going to have to make sure that your VLAN ID is set correctly, and that's something that we covered already. Okay, so this is a 1Q frame, so if it's -1, it's going to be part of the native VLAN. Okay, so if you do enable and you leave this at 1, it means you're going to only be able to manage the radio from the native VLAN, which is untagged. Okay, the second you put a tag number in here, you have to make sure that it is part of the actual tag. So if you put VLAN 5, make sure that you are configured for VLAN 5 and you switch to manage the radios, and it's going to be the same on both base and satellite, so make sure that you do both, not just one, because you're going to lose access to the other. Trunk mode can be configured under BSU, SU, endpoint A, and endpoint B. This mode is used to connect VLAN-aware networks with VLAN-aware networks. In the trunk mode, the Ethernet interface of the device forwards only those tag frames whose VLAN ID matches with the VLAN ID present in the trunk table. Okay. So in our diagram here, we have a base station and satellite. Okay, both of them are set to trunk. The VLAN switch is set to trunk. It's VLAN aware. Okay, that port is set for VLANs 2, 3, and 4. Once again, this is set to trunk, and in the VLAN table, we have 2, 3, and 4. Okay, the same thing for the satellite. We have VLAN 2, 3, and 4. It is set to trunk, and it is connected to a VLAN aware switch. Okay. In this particular scenario, only tagged packets are going to be allowed. Okay, if there's going to be any untagged frames, they're going to be dropped, or if there are any VLANs that are not in the VLAN table, let's just say that down in the switch, there's also 5, 6, and 7, but the radios are not aware in the VLAN table of 5, 6, and 7. They are going to be dropped because the radio is not aware of them. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at trunk mode. Okay, so what we have here is the same. Okay, here's my VLANs. Click on Ethernet, and then we're going to go ahead and set up the trunk. Okay, now remember, with trunk mode, the device itself has to be connected to a VLAN aware switch or device. You can have a PC that has a NIC that supports VLANs. But you may also have untagged frames as well, maybe management or something like that you want to allow. So you could go ahead and select enable, and then that's going to go ahead and pass untagged frames itself. So going with our diagram. Okay, the switch itself is configured for VLANs 2, 3, and 4. We configured the BSU table. All right, and the SU table for VLANs 2, 3, and 4, and again, the other side of the switch is also configured for the same VLANs. So what we have here is just that. This is the base station, and here's the satellite. Okay, 2, 3, and 4 added. If we want to add more, just go ahead and click Add. Go ahead and add whatever one you want, and say, for instance, we're going to do 5. Click Add, and here's 5. Now, you got to remember that you could have all of these VLANs here, but if the VLAN switch port itself doesn't support those particular tags, it's really not going to matter. But you have to make sure, and once again, if you want VLANs 2, 3, and 4 to pass from this end to this end, okay, you have to make sure that the BSU and the SU table and the switch on the opposite end all have those VLAN tags configured. After you've configured everything, just go ahead and click OK and commit. And once again, you have to be careful. I'm going to mention several times about the management ID. The second you hit commit, if you already have put in a management VLAN ID, or you're on a tag port and you leave this as -1, you're going to lose management to the radio. Okay, so you've really got to make sure that you pay attention to what you're doing to this field over here. Access mode can be configured on the SU endpoint A and endpoint B. This is used to connect VLAN aware networks with VLAN unaware networks. The egress untagged traffic received in the Ethernet interface are tagged with the configured access VLAN ID and the access VLAN priority before forwarding it to the warp interface. Similarly, all egress tag frames with specified VLAN IDs are untagged at the Ethernet interface and then forwarded. Based on the management VLAN ID configuration, both tagged and untagged management frames can access the device from the warp interface. However, only untagged management frames can access the device from the Ethernet interface. The tag frames will be dropped. So what we have here is a Tsunami MP, okay, point to multi-point. We have a base and 3 satellites over here. Right? So our VLAN switch is configured for VLANs 2, 3, and 4. The base station is in trunk mode. Okay, and in the VLAN table it has VLANs 2, 3, and 4. Now each one of these subscribers is in access mode, okay, because what's connected to it is not VLAN aware. Okay, so we have this one that's slated for VLAN 2, VLAN 3, VLAN 4, and that's all that they know. So basically what happens is as the information comes through here, the Ethernet port's going to strip the tag. Okay, and so this is doesn't aware. It just becomes part of the broadcast domain from here. It's not aware that it's part of any VLANs, but as the information comes back to the Ethernet port on the subscriber, is retagged with VLAN 4, and then it's sent out this way. Okay, so this is pretty good for WISPs or manufacturing or whatever, but access mode does not support VLAN aware. It's non-VLAN aware devices that are connected to the radio. All right, so last but not least, we're going to go ahead and cover access mode. So access mode is only configurable on the satellite or the endpoint B radio. Okay, once again, access mode is, let's go ahead and take a look at our diagram. Here we have a base station with 3 subscribers. We still have our VLANs 2, 3, and 4. The base station has the 2, 3, and 4 in its table. Now, access mode is once again, what is connected to the radio is not VLAN aware. Okay, so it just doesn't understand VLANs at all. So it's going to strip the packet here, and it's going to go to your PC, switch, or whatever. It makes it just one big broadcast domain. And as it goes back into the radio, it go ahead and retags, in this case with VLAN 2. So it strips it going this way, and then retags it going this way. Okay. So on the subscriber, what you do is VLAN mode, go ahead and select access. Here's our VLAN mode ID. Remember, you could only have one VLAN mode ID. That's all it knows. So in this case, I pick 2. You have 3, 4, whatever it is, but it's only one. If you have a particular priority that you wanted to be in. Also, if you wanted to allow untagged management access. Okay. In this particular case, what happens is when you're gonna try to manage the radio from the Ethernet port from the back end, it's not going to look at the management ID tag. Okay, but when you start looking over here, the management VLAN ID, okay, it's still going to go back to the way that, as we discussed before. -1 indicates that it's not tagged 1Q.1Q, so it's going to be part of the native VLAN. Okay, so you have to make sure that the second that you hit OK and commit, you are know what the management VLAN is, if you're going to be part of the native VLAN, or you're going to be connected to a port that's configured for your management. Let's just say if this is VLAN 5 or 4, just make sure that it's configured here, and it's also configured on the satellite and the base station and all your radios, and then that you know what that tag is, and that you have a PC that's configured for that tag or VLAN switch.
To learn more about Proxim Wireless and our solutions, please visit us at proxim.com or follow us at Twitter @Proxim.